welcome. Sue?
30
Rose,
seconds.
sorry. Rose. And John?
Rosie, 30 seconds.
Right, we had solid feedback, very strong support. I certainly am supportive. I think our expectations are high, and so certainly be supporting the establishment of this today.
I'll second if you like, if you're going to move.
Sorry, Councillor Pennyhouse has seconded.
Yep. Okay.
Right,
Good.
let's go. Rose.
Your Worship, councillors and committee members, today we're bringing to you the proposal to establish Development Auckland by joining together Waterfront Auckland and ACPL. When we consulted with Aucklanders on this proposal, we received over 14,000 pieces of feedback, which was a lot. The feedback showed 42% of support for the proposal, 7% partial support, 33% of submitters didn't support, and 8% who really couldn't be coded either way. I'd like to point out to you that the Youth, Seniors and Disability Advisory Board all submitted in support of the proposal, and 12 out of the 12 local boards submitted and gave us feedback, of which 7 supported, 2 did not. 1 supported an agency but not through amalgamation, and 2 others wanted more information. Submitters from right across the spectrum, Your Worship, were concerned about cost, both establishment costs and longer term costs. Those who supported the proposal did so because they believed it would lead to decreased costs, and conversely those who didn't support cited increased cost as their concern. Some were also concerned about housing development not being a core role of council. At the same time as we were consulting with the public, our team of council, Waterfront Auckland and ACPL, have been examining further important factors before bringing this proposal back to you. We made sure that this proposal is a robust, feasible proposal that addresses the key issues that both you and the public raised in the earlier stage of discussion. The one-off cost of establishment can be more than compensated for by ongoing savings associated with the lower remuneration of a single board and executive team. We have determined that the risks associated with increased activity can be managed through existing council policies and best practice guidelines, and we have a sustainable funding model that will allow the agency to increase activity over time. The most important thing about this model we propose, Your Worship, is that council will not be taking on construction risk or marketing and sales risk associated with residential development. That was one of your key concerns and those of many submitters. Your Worship, councillors and committee members, the team presents to you a proposal that is sound and will allow council to increase its activities in brownfield redevelopment with no extra reliance on rates. It will make the best use of our current spend on urban redevelopment activity, the best use of infrastructure we already have, and that which we now intend to invest in, especially the increased spend on public transport. It's strongly aligned to achieve your goal of a compact urban form. There are 4 further workshops planned before the proposed 1st of September establishment date. The first one is next week, where we can work with you on finer grained detail, but today we seek your decision to establish the agency, and I'm happy to take questions.
Very good. Okay, questions or comments? No. Councillor Ross?
It's just a wording. I just wonder in C3 whether that should read which of the existing directors of have the skill sets that are likely.
Yes. Change.
Right with that?
Yep.
So it would be which of the existing directors of Waterfront Auckland Council Properties have the skill sets that are likely, and then the rest of it.
Which of the existing?
Thank you, councillor.
Okay, thank you.
The skill.
Other comments?
No.
Councillor Camp?
Well, Mr Mayor, just for the public record, because there's, through the public consultation of this and through this presentation and others, there has been, I have felt, and it's a debatable point, but the impression given that it's not going to be a big call on ratepayers. I hear what the case is as far as amalgamating these two authorities and finding savings within. But I just want to remind councillors that this comes at an operational cost of $2.152 billion in the next 10 years and a capex cost of $962 million, with 170 million capex this year and 170 million opex this year. And so, as I have said on other issues this LTP round, that we love to give the impression of no extra cost, all about bringing people together and kind of hosting the meetings. It will be an ongoing draw on the ratepayers, 2.1 OPEX coming from rates and revenue, and nearly $1 billion in capital spend. So I wanted to get that on the record.
I think it's well worth putting that on the record, though, of course, as we're looking at the operational and capital cost of this united entity. I would be very interested in everyone ensuring that they know that this entity is managing at least $2 billion worth of assets on an annual basis, much of which is delivering us commercial return, and on the basis that we're holding that, I would look for them to deliver us outstanding and better commercial returns than what we do at the moment. I would also expect that they will continue to, as Waterfront has done, and we acknowledge them today, provide for outstanding commercial opportunity while we own underlying land, of giving great commercial returns through long-term rentals, which of course diminish our reliance on rates and will drive down the present rating burden from the present 43% of revenue to a sum significantly less than that as a consequence of ratepayers receiving the benefit of the land they own. So we know the risks, but we also know the opportunities. And what we have looked for in the establishment of this CCO is to receive the energy, the creativity and innovation of Waterfront in the work they've done successfully, and marry that up with the long-term property and commercial savvy and conservatism of ACPL. And on the basis that that relationship works well, then I think that we have much to look forward to. Now, Sue, I actually want to get your brief view. You've given us an opening point, but coming out of the private sector and looking generally at this as a model going forward for delivering commercial benefits to a public entity, what do you think?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you said, from the private sector, it is quite a common approach. It's well established. I've worked quite closely with a similar approach over the number of years, both in New Zealand and Australia. It does establish an efficient way of utilising resource and also speeding up development, which is key, but more importantly also does enable a constructive method of having partnership with the private sector in terms of not only development and development costs, but also funding, different funding models. So I support it, and I'm working quite actively with Stephen, Rose and John to actually ensure that we establish this entity.
Very good. Now I've got Councillor Denise and then Councillor Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Wholeheartedly support this particular item, the creation of Development Auckland. There's been a need for this over the period of time that is the super city, and it's a big occasion today to sign this off, which I expect will be a unanimous vote. Right, Councillor Brewer? And having mentioned Councillor Brewer, I do echo his expectations in terms of financial stewardship of Development Auckland going forward, but I also note that it's here in black and white under Role of Development Auckland, page 249, and it's the first point: operate in a financially prudent manner to enable Auckland Council to keep rates low
Sounds like
and
80.
contain debt. So you can't get much more black and white than that.
They also,
And the next point also is an increasing focus. Would be better if it just said a focus on commercial outcomes. Rose, you must have been at the Panmure Have Your Say event when you summarised public feedback, because that's precisely what the 6 or 7 around the table with me said in regards to development in Auckland. At first it was what, who, what is this? And the first thing they cottoned on was that it was a merger of 2 CCOs, and the comment 1 CCO less is a good thing. Quickly got raised. Next it was financial stewardship, prudent behaviour going forward. But other than that, a wholehearted agreement that it was a good idea if we were going to leverage assets and get a better return and outcome for ratepayers. So thank you for your work in structural strategy, John, and look forward to Development Auckland and all it does.
Right, thank you. I've got 5 speakers and I'd be hopeful that we...
Oh, I'm going to vote for it, let's just do it.
5 speakers. I don't want anyone repeating stuff. It's getting quite late in the day. Please. Councillor Chris?
Thanks. Yeah, it's quite a day today to sign this off. This is a biggie part of this budget, and this entity is, I believe, is going to do some great things in Auckland over the next decades. And it was one of the things that I signalled early on in the CCO review. It's something that I've been aspiring for Auckland for even in my North Shore city days. Didn't really have the thinking there, but it was just too early. But now it's here, and this entity can bring tremendous skill, it can bring scale, it can bring speed, and then it wraps in partnership to deliver, and it does not have us be the developer at risk, but we get to deliver to the design that we aspire to. And it will reflect across Auckland some of the great work that Waterfront Auckland has done, and give our people living in our various towns and villages an opportunity to drive by and walk by, cycle by, and experience some outstanding regeneration that other parts of Auckland, and now not to be just the city centre, are deserving of. So innovative developments throughout Auckland, the opportunity here. But I can't help but think once we get this up and going, and from this day on, that the government, which has got a lot of interest in seeing regeneration in Auckland and Auckland better deliver on its housing needs, when I think about the surplus land and the opportunity for regeneration of lands that are under the Crown's control, I can't help but think that they might be wanting to look at our model and duplicate it or set something up similar, because that is lacking in not just Auckland but the whole of New Zealand, a government model like this. It's not new, we're not doing anything brand new here, but we have learnt from some international models that have been successful and those that have failed to structure ours. But I would hope that the government looks at this and embarks upon its own journey as we are embarking today.
Thank you. Councillor Penny H.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I am delighted to see this happen, and we'll certainly keep working with our staff on the project. From when Councillor Linda Cooper and I went to Subiaco in Perth about 10 years ago to look at development agencies and utilise that in conjunction with the Hobsonville Land Company in Hobsonville and then New Lynn, we know that these joined up projects work well. So it's great to build on that good thinking of previous councils. I think Development Auckland is a huge opportunity for us, and certainly I've not spoken to any community organisation, community group, developer or housing provider who doesn't see this as a huge opportunity. You know, you cannot escape the fact that houses, development and building in Auckland is the single focus of pretty much everything, certainly of the media, and this is our opportunity to seriously drive good outcomes where we've got part of the levers in our hands, and we're not just dependent on other people. I think the government are looking forward to this, the development community are looking forward to it, and I'm very, very glad that, as Councillor Crum wisely says, this will be supported unanimously.
Yep, thank you. Councillor Ross?
Totally enthusiastic, been a strong proponent right from the start. However, I really, we must remember it's in the detail, so going forward as to the powers that they are going to be given over things like property optimisation is going to be really crucial. So that's a big decision for us councillors to realise that there will not be quite as much going into the consolidated pot from our sales of property, because if we're going to do this properly, you're going to have to be able to sink money that is sold locally into the projects within a city centre. And I'm just, obviously I can give Avondale as an example. There's got to be some stuff sold and left in there to keep it. And then the second thing is, how long do we allow this development agency to hold on to things before they do sell and move on, because they need to regenerate that money. So I'm just looking forward to the details coming forward.
Councillors, I just need to move an extension of time for half an hour.
Yeah.
Have a seconder, please.
Yep. Yeah.
Councillor Cathy, all those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against, passed. Councillor,
I move we put the motion, Mr Chairman.
Well, we've got to have a
Council meeting after
oh,
this.
okay.
We've had no one speak against.
Beg your pardon?
No, well, if there's no to speak
Yeah, I was
against,
kind of Switzerland, wasn't
There's-
What about a question?
Is there anyone speaking against?
I have a question.
Yeah, I got a question.
Yeah, look, it's a procedural motion, you all know it, we've debated it so many times, but it's there. So I want to put the motion, all those in favour, aye, say aye. It's against?
No.
Me?
No.
About an extension of time.
Sorry, you,
Oh, I think that's-
or is
Isn't
he
that
actually?
the
I move to
procedural,
procedural, oh.
That's right.
that
and-
extension of
Sorry.
time?
No,
Procedural.
sorry, it was a procedural motion and I
Close.
moved it.
Yeah.
And you said yes, you wanted to have the vote right now.
No, we didn't. I'll just vote against it.
Well, I'm going to move it again, I know it's sort of nearly 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon. So this is the procedural motion to put the vote. Right? And Councillor Linda is exactly within her rights to move this. So I'll move the procedural motion to put the vote. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against?
No.
Carry on,
Bloody hell.
councillors.
Let's have a show of hands.
Aye.
Beg your pardon. We're going to put a show of hands. I can't tell. So show of hands for putting the vote. It's definitely a majority.
I think it's one.
I heard that when I put it down. I thought you just already counted.
12, 13. Let's go.
Oh,
I know. Come on, you
Oh,
guys.
George, you just
Yeah.
live across the bridge.
George,
You're bloody
yeah.
miles away.
Okay, so we're going to put the vote. And look, to be fair, even though there are 1 or 2 questions, I think
And the staff want to go home too.
there's quite a clear sentiment for this. So I'll put the underlying motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against?
No.
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 Oh, hang on, that was against the
Yes.
establishment of the CCR.
Yes,
Yes,
because we weren't able
yes.
to ask questions
One
about
day
mitigation
history
of
will
risk.
vindicate us.
All right.
Again. No, that'll do, it's passed. Right, move on to, thank you, slightly messy finish, but there you go.
thank you.
Can I want to ask if there is a bubble?
Councillors, I know, Councillor Chris, listen a minute. Now, look, the one thing about our standing orders, and for 5 years now we've been debating this issue, is whether or not it's every single person's right to put the vote. If you don't like it, get rid of it out of standing orders. All right? But when it's put, that's their right, and it's a waste of time debating that. And so, you know, I think after 5 odd years, we ought to just forget the humdrum nonsensy debate about whether a person should or shouldn't put it. If you don't like it, and if we don't like it as a council, get it out of the standing orders. Otherwise, chill it.
Mr Chairman, in response,
No,
because you
I've-
pointed
no.
me out specifically.
No, I'm not. No, enough. Right, now we're now going on to greenways, item 15.
We nickel and dime stuff and we have